freaking weenies. Today was therapy day, and I wanted to maybe save you a few bucks and regurgitate some of the things we were talking about around the topic of shame when it comes to breakups or divorce. Now, I am no stranger to failed relationships. If you're new here, I was married for 13 years to my first husband. We were together, married for 10, together for 13. We have 2 kids from that relationship. And very quickly after that marriage uncoupled, I met my second husband. We were only married 14 months. Praise Jesus. But it was a second marriage that has since failed. And I am navigating a second divorce. And so I've been unpacking big feelings for a long time. And when I was talking to my therapist today, we kind of went through and I took notes. So I am sharing this in hopes that it lands with somebody. Maybe you're processing the end of a serious relationship. Maybe you two are navigating divorce and you've got very big feelings. And what helps me get through difficult times is knowing that I'm not alone, that I'm not the only person experiencing this. I'm not taking crazy pills, and I am processing. And when you know others are walking the same path with you, experiencing the same thoughts, it just kind of lightens the load a little bit. So I took some notes. I'm going to go off the bullet points and then we're going to kind of talk about it. Feel free to chime in with any questions or feedback. But the first thing that is shameful about divorce is that it's perceived as a failure. And I don't think anyone likes to admit or talk about the ways in which they are lacking or something is unsuccessful. And because of the seriousness around marriage and creating that bond and taking those vows and whatever goes into the display of the wedding itself, there is so much shame when it falls apart because then it makes you look like you're a failure. When in reality, people don't know what goes on behind closed doors. They don't know what happens between your dynamics. They don't know who is responsible for what or how each of your roles either worked well together or opposed one another. And so, especially for me, what's been difficult about the failure of a relationship is that I am a ride or die, very, very loyal person. The problem I've experienced in my previous 2 marriages that I've sort of woken up around is that it's not my job to fix people. And the relationships that I should say yes to should be people that are already healed and whole and at my level of feeling in control and at the helm of their life. And in the past, I've chosen partners who desperately needed me. And there was obviously some codependency involved in my previous relationships. And there was a desire to fix and or take care of everything. As an empath, a Virgo, someone who has survived abuse and addiction, I feel equipped to handle many situations. And so mentally, I feel like I have the bandwidth to show them the way or heal them or put back the broken parts. When in reality, that is their job. And they should pay someone like a therapist to work through that. And it should not be something that I outsource for them for free. And so that perceived failure for folks like me that really put their all into relationships and wanting to fix and help people can be a huge blowback on your confidence and how you see yourself. So that's the first thing. Second thing is societal judgment. And I am not a stranger to this. In fact, every time I post a Q&A, some asshole jumps in and will say something along the lines of, well, if it didn't work with Jerry and it didn't work with Z, maybe you're the problem. Because God forbid that you end relationships because they are unfulfilling, unhealthy, or you are unhappy despite your best efforts. And I think that there is a lot of people who have judgment around relationships ending because they see marriage as something that can be repaired. And I will say that it can't. I think that there have been several situations in my life, especially in my relationships, where I have come into the relationship with the best intentions, the greatest effort and output. I have shown up more. I have created more environmental factors and issues and been more nurturing and accepting and understanding and graceful and all these things. I've just chosen the wrong people. I'm the problem in the sense that I was not choosing the right partners. And because of that, people will look at me as if maybe I did something wrong for these 2 marriages to fail, when in reality, I have learned and grown and expanded a lot. I met my first husband when I was 21, and I left my second husband when I was 39, 10 days after my birthday, actually. So from 21 to 39, I have been in a committed relationship with someone and have been somebody's wife or, in a serious relationship. And that's taken a toll. You know what I mean? And so I'm the one putting in the effort, but I'm the one that feels like I get the judgment. And I see that a lot here on social media. I get a lot of messages from folks who have big opinions about my relationships and my marriages failing. And that's a hard thing to hear because, one, these folks don't really know what happened within the marriage, and they don't see the bravery and the courage that it took to leave an unhappy marriage. I feel really proud of the fact that I have chosen myself in both of my relationships that really I should have not entered into the first place. I grew up in a home where my dad was very abusive. My mom struggled with addiction. They did not get along. They were together for 20 plus years. They had 4 kids together, and it almost destroyed everyone. They should have uncoupled decades ago. But because it was such a long, drawn out process, and there was no healing and there was no repair, I approached my marriages with the same sort of like, I'll die on this hill. And that's why I was with Jerry for so long. We were together for 13 years, married for 10. But in this second situation, my second marriage, that was only 14 months, I'm so glad that I had the courage and bravery to leave that very unhealthy environment for myself and remove myself from something that would have otherwise really hurt me in the long run and became unsafe in a lot of ways. And so there's a lot of bravery around that. And I think that people want to judge you for looking at just the facts. Like, oh, Kim's been married twice. She must be an absolute man-eater psychopath. When in reality, it's like, I'll take ownership of the fact that maybe I didn't make the best decisions, but I had the best intentions and I had the best effort. And I definitely was doing the work. And I was trying to heal and I was trying to grow and be a better person. So, the judgment is another big thing why people don't leave bad relationships, because they're worried about what people are going to say. And I need to remind you, this is your life. You're the one that has to lay down your head on the pillow every night and be happy with where you are and not disassociate from your life because it's so terrible. There is a life that you can create out there if you simply have the balls to do it. And that's one thing there's no shortage of them in my life, is I have huge lady balls. I will make some pretty hardcore decisions because I believe in happiness. I believe in not wasting this lifetime. And I believe in, if your awakening happens 14 months into a marriage, then it happens. Better 10 years down the road when I've wasted a decade with somebody who didn't deserve me in the first place. So the second sort of blowback and the shame around divorce is that you lose your identity. If you have spent the majority of your time with this person, holidays, commingling, families. I know in my first marriage, we were all very close. My family, his family, we were all intertwined. We had children together. So there was aunts and uncles and cousins involved, and traditions and, big milestones. Jerry and I owned homes together, and we had a lot of life together in the 13 years, and we spent every day together of that 13 years. So when you lose that person, you lose a piece of your identity. You are not really operating from a me, you're operating from a we. And I haven't been just me ever. I've been in back-to-back monogamous relationships since I was 16. So I had 2 or 3 serious relationships from 17 to 21. And then I jumped right into my relationship with Jerry. And I was with Jerry from 21 to 34. And that's a big chunk of my life. And then I met Zach at 34. We were together till I was 39. So I have been in serious relationships to where I've never really operated as myself. And so when you remove yourself completely from all relationships and you really take the time to be single and be alone, live alone, do things on your own, especially being a single mom, doing things solo, it's scary. You feel the judgment, whether it's real or assumed. There's definitely like anxiety ridden moments where you remember what it was like to have a family unit or at least a man around or whatever that partnership looked like. And so you lose your identity because a lot of it becomes attached to your spouse and attached to the person that you have coupled with. And so that was a huge part of me leaving this last relationship, because I was so mentally and emotionally beaten down and isolated and molded into something that I didn't recognize. It was very hard for me to remember who I was. That was difficult. It was difficult for me to kind of wake up from the haze and remember that like I am somebody worth knowing. I am valuable. I am deserving of joy and happiness. And I've just let that slip through my fingers. And I gave the power to the wrong people. And the identity gets shaken in a divorce. So that's another thing. There's also this blowback of when you end a relationship, you know, whether it's a marriage or a long-term relationship, there is this fear of being seen as unlovable or difficult. And I have heard many times in my relationships that I'm hard to love, which I know is not true. If you know me at all, I am probably the most giving, generous, happy, excited to be their person ever. I overextend myself in almost every dynamic because I truly like to take care of people. I know what it's like to not feel taken care of. So I really shine in that role. So when you are told the words that you're hard to love, it's hard not to, take that internally and take that personally. But I know that it was a tactic of manipulation and it worked because I am a sensitive little thug. So when, this second divorce happened, immediately I was just so embarrassed. Like, what are people going to think about me? They already know me as someone that has been divorced once, and I have 2 kids from that marriage. And now I'm getting divorced a second time, and it was a very short marriage. It's a bad reflection of me. Like, I don't have good judgment, or maybe I'm the problem, like we talked about earlier, or I'm not lovable, or I'm, somehow defective, which is not the case. That's not the case at all. But those are the feelings that come up when relationships end. I think both people experience that feeling of being unlovable or difficult. And for me, because this was my second divorce, it sort of triggered a lot of this like unworthiness and a lot of like lack of confidence. And it just really made me feel like, man, do you just suck at life? Like, are you just not good at picking partners? Like, are you that gullible? Are you that stupid? Are you that blind to things that are otherwise toxic? Are you so used to abusive dynamics and like not believing in yourself that you're just willing to accept dog shit relationships? Like, so there was a lot of internal stuff going on at that time too. Then there's some layers of like parental guilt. Breaking up a family is so hard. In my first marriage, getting used to being away from my kids. I've been a stay-at-home mom since Ashlyn was born. And I was lucky enough to build an empire from my phone while she was a toddler and when Kobe was in my belly. So if you guys have been with me since doTERRA, I built doTERRA and traveled and spoke and did all of that stuff while having 2 kids under 3. And it was so heartbreaking when Jerry and I divorced. Not because I was sad about Jerry. I mean, yes, I was. There was definitely some sadness there. But the real depth of my despair was being away from my kids because I was the mom that was there for every minute of every day, every field trip and class project and homework and story time and bath and meal. That was me. It's still not easy. 7 years later, co-parenting, it still sucks. It still sucks. Being away from my kids is the hardest thing still. And it's been 7 years. But I don't want to say the word tearing. My therapist has reminded me to use words that are kind. I have a tendency to use words that are aggressive and mean when I talk about myself or my life. So when you uncouple a relationship, and that includes children, you feel incredibly guilty and shameful around breaking apart the family, right? And imagine going through this twice. So it was, and this is part of the, here we go. Part of the psychology of why I chose the wrong relationship. And I get this question all of the time, especially my therapist is like, I really need you to see the bad choices that you made so you don't repeat them. We've been working together for over a decade. She can say some pretty harsh things to me. But part of the initial draw to starting a relationship with Zach, there was a couple things out of my control. When he was, evicted from his living situation and needed somewhere to go and his whole life imploded, which he blamed me for, which is, classic, is that I was really wanting to recreate that family dynamic, right? Of having like a man in the house, a woman in the house, a father-like figure, even though that wasn't the case, right? It didn't come together for years down the road because there was just a lack of emotional maturity and so many red flags. But there was a desire to not, one, be alone, and then two, to give my children a family again. And that's a really difficult part about divorce, is that you sort of sever the idea of family. And now they have 2 houses and 2 holidays and 2 birthdays. And, depending on like who comes in afterwards, they have new people they have to entertain. And there's a lot of growing pains within that. And it's just the guilt around taking your kids away from both parents every day is enormous. It made me stay in my marriage for 4 years longer than I intended to, because I just I could not wrap my head around, one, me not seeing my kids every day, and then two, having to share time with them. I made them, I carry them, I take care of them. Like they're more mine than anyone else's. But the guilt around divorce, uncoupling, and having to explain to your kids is super hard. And so you almost feel like you're not providing a stable 2-parent household. And that's something that we all long for. And even though I had 2 parents in the house and they didn't get along, I still grew up until I was 16 years old with a mom and a dad in a house. And there was a lot of comfort in that. I mean, there was a lot of times that I was worried they would get divorced, and I even prayed and wished that they would at times. But I did have the privilege of having both parents in the house until I was 17. And I feel sad that I haven't given my kids the same. Granted, I wouldn't stay just for the longevity, but ideally I would have loved to have married and had kids with somebody that like I was still with, someone that I could say I've got 20 years under my belt already with. And in all reality, I'm starting over again. Almost 40, 2 divorces and 2 kids. So this is fine, which leads into the next bullet point I wanted to talk about. More shame around divorce is that you compare yourself to other people, which I kind of lightweight just did. I have some friends that have been together with their spouses for 20 plus years, and they're actually happy. I'm not talking about the folks that have shackled themselves to a human and they actually hate each other. I'm talking about the couples that actually are doing the work. They are still dating their spouses. They're in therapy. They are committed. They've had hard seasons, but they came back together. I'm not talking about the couples that have been together for 20 plus years and they're basically roommates, less than roommates, because they just have no interaction or bond. I'm talking about the couples that you look at and you can see the happiness and the love and the affection and the joy. I have a few friends that have that, and it's really beautiful to see because they're so rare. And on the flip side, I know a lot of folks who are unhappily married for 20 plus years, but they're too afraid to leave because they don't financially have the means to. They don't want to be away from their kids. They don't know what they would do, and they don't want to start over. And a lot of people don't want to start over. That's their biggest qualm with leaving, is starting over. I've already survived divorcing and starting over and being independent on my own and kind of like rebuilding myself from the ground up. And so I could definitely do it a second time. It's like when you're somewhere tropical, like say you're on a Mexican, vacation, you're in Mexico, you're about to jump off the cliff into the water. It seems scary. It seems impossible. You seem like, man, this is going to kill me. What if I die? And so you typically have this resistance, and then you jump, and it wasn't that bad, and you made it. You survived. There was like some fear, but you also really enjoyed that. When you get up the next time to jump off the cliff, it's much easier because you've done it before. So I feel like in this second round of my divorce, I am equipped to start over because I've already done it before. And it was harder because I had kids involved. In this situation, in my second divorce, we had no children. In fact, he was a giant child. So it almost felt like a weight was coming off of my shoulders to get rid of this parasite kind of person. Which we'll talk about another time. But, comparing yourself to others is the thief of all joy. And I've learned that because instead of looking at some of my friends who have really amazing marriages for 20 plus years and feeling envious or like I'm not good enough or not deserving or something is wrong with me, I am just really happy for them. And it gives me a lot of hope that I can create that kind of bond, because at my age, I'm still going to be around for 60 plus years. I'm going to make it to triple digits, baby. I'm going to be 100 plus when I finally die. So that means I technically still have a chance to be married to somebody for 60 years. So I'm not out yet. The clock is ticking and the window's getting smaller, but your girl's not out. Just mark my words. I will make it to where I'm supposed to be, and I will grow old with somebody for a very long time. And I believe that. I believe that to be true. But working through all these layers of what it's like to go through divorce is important. So that way you can have an understanding of what other folks are experiencing too. And then the last couple of things, internalizing messages from the relationship. We don't really talk about that too much. I think it's not something that you can really put out into the world, but everybody in a relationship that has ended or is in the process of ending has had some poor messaging and programming. You've been told how you are. You've been fed maybe manipulation and lies about how you are, the kind of person you are. You've been talked badly to, verbally abused, name called, disrespected. All of these things compound and they change the way you view yourself. And so it's really hard for me, especially as someone who thinks and feels very deeply, to not internalize those negative statements about me. And that was something I spent the first month sitting with, in therapy with. And my therapist had me write down as many evil, ugly, awful things as I could that I was told from past relationships, and to put them on paper and to say it out loud. And then after I said it out loud, I would have to take a deep breath with my hand on my heart and say, I know this is not true. And so that way you not only get to acknowledge the lies, right? And the internalized dialogue of how you feel about yourself, which has been programmed from somebody else who was not deserving of your love and your relationship. You get to bring it to life, and then you get to say, that's not true. And there's a lot of power in that activity. And granted, I had like 16 or 17 statements that I said out loud. It was very emotional. I cried quite a bit. But it's important to know that you're not hard to love. You are enough. You're not a terrible person. You are smart. You are strong. You are capable. You are loving and nurturing. You are good. And the wrong people will try to convince us otherwise. And those messages stay with us for a long time. So that's very helpful. There's also a lot of shame that comes from when we think we should be able to fix it. And let me tell you, as a Virgo empath, I think I can fix, cure, heal anybody. It's kind of my party trick. It's why I've been so successful creating blends, because I know the plants, I know the emotions, I know the crystals, like I know the powerful words to pair. I've created these tools because I know they work. They work on me and thousands of other people. And so I have this sort of innate belief system that I can help anybody, that I can heal anyone, and that anybody is in good hands with me. And it's kind of like with kids. I'm going to tangent off for a second, then we'll come right back. But children are highly intuitive when it comes to who is safe. They will only spend time with people, interact with people that they feel safe with, that people that calm their nervous system. The running joke that's been my whole life is that I'm the Pied Piper of children. Kids love me. I don't mean children just like say hi to me and think I'm funny. Literally, when I go anywhere, I am surrounded by children. Because I understand kids. Kids know that I'm safe. They know that I'm going to protect them. They know that I'm going to listen to them, that I'm going to treat them kindly, that I'm going to show up for them, that I'm going to make them laugh and like hold space for them. Kids can tell who's safe. And I also like to have fun. I tend to hang out with the animals and the kids at any kind of social situation because grown-up talk is not my favorite. And so, when you create a safe energy, people are attracted to that. And I think that part of what has been my demise in my past relationships, I thought I could fix too much and that it was my job. And I've been a fixer my whole life. I'm in the middle of 6 kids, 5 of which, I only grew up with 4. So I was right smack in the middle. I had an older brother, older sister, younger brother, younger sister growing up. So everything was my responsibility and my fault. And I never got any praise. It was just always, I was on the shit list 24/7. And that was really difficult. So I grew up with this deeply ingrained programming that you need to fix it. This is your job. Come talk to me when it's done and make sure you did a good job. And so, that's what's hard about divorce is that if I'm ending a relationship that I committed to, then I failed. I didn't fix it. I didn't do a good job. And that can stick with you for a long time. The last couple of things and then we'll kind of kibosh this, but I just wanted to regurgitate this while it was fresh in my mind, is that some of the most shameful stuff happens around isolation. And so shame thrives in secrecy. I mean, that's a really powerful statement. People going through a divorce have a tendency to withdraw because when you're feeling shame, you don't want to show that to anybody, but you have to sit with it. Shame is not an emotion you can cover up. It's like it lingers. It's a cloud. It's like a thumb sticking out of the top of your head. And when you create a loop where you're isolating yourself from social circles and your friends and you're just withdrawn, that creates a deep sense of isolation. Like you can't participate. Like you don't feel like you're good enough to be seen. You just see the shame. You just feel the isolation, and you end up slipping into states that are bad and dark and scary. And it takes a lot of personal effort to push through the shame and be willing to like put yourself back out there in the world. Even small things like going on dates or going out with friends or I'll never forget the feeling I had the very first time I took my kids out to dinner alone after Jerry and I separated. We went downtown Gig Harbor, where we love to go, and it had been a place of many memories with us as a family. We did the Halloween parade and the trick-or-treating. We did the boat festival, the tree lighting. We would go down to the restaurants, down to the water. We would go to the, that was our family place. We spent so much time downtown Gig Harbor. And so I took the kids down to a car show. And we ate at our favorite little cafe. And I remember having the biggest panic attack of my entire life. I just felt like everyone was looking at me, and it just happened to be the day of moms and dads out together. So everyone that we saw that day was like, the dad was there, the mom was there, the kids were there. It was perfect. And then here's me, this not box bleach. I paid really good money for that bleach blonde, but I had bleach blonde hair. So I obviously looked unwell because you guys know that obviously I'm meant to be a brunette. So I had bleached blonde, white, icy hair. I'll have to post a picture so you guys can see, because I took a picture that day. So you can see the pain in my face. And I had a panic attack. I felt like everybody was looking at me and judging me for being like a single mom in Gig Harbor of all places. And I was tattooed and I had this, fake blonde hair. And I felt so shameful. I just had like the worst breakdown of one of my life lessons was that. It was just like, man, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. Like, did I make a mistake? Should I go back? Like, I don't know if I can do this forever. This seems really difficult. So shame will isolate you. And so because of that, I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to do anything. We got invited to stuff because people will naturally feel bad for you when they know you're going through a divorce, and they'll invite you to go places. Oh, come over 4th of July. We're going to go out, take the boat out. You want to go camping? It's like a pity invite, but they're doing that to keep you socially engaged, not because they pity you, but because they don't want you to slip into the scary states of isolation where your mental health takes a huge dive and you become recluse and you become borderline agoraphobic. And that's what happened to me. I just did not want to go anywhere or see anyone. The shame was too big and I felt the judgment, and it was really hard. This time around, not so much. I actually thrive going out and taking my kids places. I actually thrive being the mom that, despite all of the stuff that I'm going through right now, I'm able to really trudge on and be strong and confident for my kids. And so they see it as a positive thing. They're not seeing me get my ass kicked by a divorce. They just know that I am going to keep moving onward and upward, and they love that. Then the last thing before I go is the biggest shameful aspect of divorce or ending any serious relationship is the fear of starting over because of all of those things we went through. The judgment, the social pressure, the family dynamics, the logistics of finances. Where are you going to live? How are you going to eat? What are you going to do for a job? Are you going to have enough money? You're going to lose time with your kids. You're going to be single. Like me, going from cooking dinner 3 times or cooking meals 3 times a day for my family of 4 to being by myself for an entire week where I only have to take care of me was frightening. It was like, is this real life? And so there's a period where I didn't take care of myself. I didn't eat because I just didn't want to. It was like, well, I don't want to cook for one. That's pathetic and boring and depressing. But as time has gone on, I see how I don't want my body to like slip into that like frailty. I don't want to look like I'm emaciated and like, life's kicking my butt. I want to be strong and feel strong. So I focus on my protein count and I meal plan and I eat healthy food and I treat my body like it's something worth having because it's carried me through so much already. And so the fear of starting over is this idea of like beginning again. It almost feels like a midlife crisis. Like, who am I? And why am I doing this again? So those are the main things that really weigh on people as they toss around the idea of divorce or are going through the divorce process. And this is why I feel so strongly about women, especially having their own money, having, the right system set in place so that you can make the right decisions for your life. If I wasn't a business owner and financially on my own for the last 12 years, I would not have been able to leave both of my marriages. And I can see how difficult that would be without having to pack up your stuff and move in with a relative. I can see, and you know what? Some situations call for that. And there's nothing wrong with starting over and rebuilding your life because there's a lot of beauty in that growth. There's a lot of beautiful tenderness and moments that you need to experience to do that, especially if you can't wait another 10 years before you leave. I, fortunately, in this scenario and in my previous scenario, was the person working and the person making the money and the person doing everything. So I was just able to kind of like shorten the roster and get back to what I do best, which is take care of my kids and myself. And so not everybody has that, but that's why I'm a huge advocate for generating an income on your own, whatever that looks like. Even if you have a remote job or you are in network marketing or you make something that you love, we all need to have the ability for our own financial independence. That's just what it calls for. So anyways, I love you all. I will talk to you soon. Thanks for joining me. Bye.